We should link idolatry with opportunity cost. Now, I know somebody who considers himself to be an intellectual, and I have tried to interest him in the concept of opportunity cost. But sadly, there are many people who consider themselves to be intellectuals, but who are sadly not particularly creative and not particularly, um, what's the word when somebody, well, particularly slow in understanding important concepts. I mean, I get it that a lot of people they're only interested in what they're interested in, and you can't, take them outside their comfort zone because, well, they just won't go there if you drag them. If you drag them, they'll only stay a while and just reject everything anyway. So, sadly, in Western politics, that there aren't really that many well-intentioned and creative people who are capable of understanding and manipulating abstract ideas. What is opportunity cost? It is a concept I first came across when I was doing economics at A level. So, opportunity cost is basically saying that if you have finite resources like land or property or just anything really, and you use it for one thing, it means you have lost the opportunity of using it for another. Um, to explain in a way that is more um, easy to understand for people who don't run businesses, it is if you marry one woman or man, you have lost the opportunity of marrying somebody else. If you um, go to the cinema and choose to watch one movie, you have lost the opportunity of watching another film. Of course, you can always return to the cinema on another day and watch the other film. But the point is that you have lost the opportunity that night of watching another film because you used up your evening watching this film instead of the other film. Possibly you can use, it's not the end of the world. You have more time, more resources to do the other thing. But, it really depends on um, how much time and how much energy and how much resources you have. They are always finite, including your time on Earth. So if you waste your time and don't pass your exams and you don't get a good job, you're going to find it very hard to, catch up because it's very difficult as an adult to be in full time. Well, the thing is, you won't be in full time education, will you? You will be, doing a job and trying to um, be passing this exam. And for many people, it will be quite hard, unless you're a full time student. But then that also incurs time and energy and cost if you think of student loans. So when you decide to do one thing rather than the other, like, if you decide to go, left rather than right, and it's a wrong way, you have lost the opportunity of going the right way. But of course, you can, find your way back to where you made the wrong turning, perhaps, or through a longer route, get to your desired destination. But the thing is, it's about doing things a smart way and not wasting time and resources doing things the wrong way. So when you do things the wrong way, you have lost the opportunity of doing it the right way. And if by doing things the wrong way you suffer terribly, you become bankrupt, you get killed, you suffer some terrible tragedy, then or cause others to, you have you have paid the opportunity cost of not doing things the right way. And I'm saying that if you are an idolater, you're obviously not, following the Quran properly or at all because you think you know better. How has this been a tragedy for Westerners? Well, they've got, a terrible history of famine and religious wars and world wars, and now they're suffering from imperial and demographic decline. So obviously they're suffering. Most of them are getting dumb and dumber, uh, more and more degenerate and more mentally ill, and clearly they don't know whether they're coming or going, whether it's day or night, and they go round and round in circles, blaming Jews, hating on Muslims, and I can tell that they are suffering, and they have no hope because they have thought themselves into a simmer or a rolling boil of hatred against Jews and Muslims, because that's how they roll. They scapegoat and then they blame, and waste time doing so when they could actually be solving the problem. So I've used this analogy before. So if they found their roof to be leaking, they would just round everyone up and ask them if they were a Jew instead of calling the roofers to get their roof fixed. And in the meantime, antagonize everyone by accusing them of crimes that could only have happened because of the wear and tear and the weather that caused a tile to fall off or something. So obviously, this is not, the smart way of solving their problems, but they have become so stupid because of their idolatry and their refusal to acknowledge their mistake, because they are clearly indulging in the deadly sin of pride, anger, envy, lust, gluttony, greed, and sloth. So, all the things that their ancestors warned them not to do, they are in fact now doing, and they can see no way out, and they probably have arrived on the idea that they might like to kill themselves, which explains, the interest in assisted suicide and child euthanasia, and all these things that have come to alarm and disturb them. But really, all they have to do is collectively decide what the best available guide to humanity is, and like me, if they are honest, rational, and moral, they would arrive at the Quran. And even if they hate the Quran, and I know a lot of them are just dyed in the wool Islamophobes who really operate by hatred of the other. That's not the correct way of going about things, but and they have corrupted themselves by thinking that rage and hatred will somehow get them what they want. If they ever get the chance to have their way with the people always hated. So when they've gotten over themselves, I think they would have to acknowledge that the Quran, however much they hate Muslims and Islam, is the best available guide to humanity. And once they have collectively agreed that they can't find anything better, I mean, they can have a go at producing something that is better, but I don't think it will have the moral and divine authority that is necessary to persuade enough people. So I think it's only a matter of time because things are afoot. It is a summer. Summer is the time for revolutions. And we know there is a lot of diplomacy going on in trying to stop the war in Ukraine and trying to continue it, and Trump obviously trying to put a stamp on his second administration. So I hope I have sufficiently explained. Um, Opportunity cost is what you pay for your idolatry. You are an idolater if you do not follow either the Torah or the Quran. Um, what about the Jews? I mean, are they idolaters? I would say some of them are, even though they seem to be observant Jews, because they obviously are invested in the idea that their Torah is better than the Quran. And it's like, yeah, fair enough, if that's what you want to think, but do not keep refusing to engage with Gentiles who understandably and predictably want to ask you to explain why you think the Torah is better than the Quran. And as for Muslims, I don't know if they are actually going about the business of inviting rabbis to explain to them why they think the Torah is better than the Quran. I think really the rabbinical refusal to engage with Muslims on the subject of why the Torah is better than the Quran is because these rabbis are actually afraid to read the Quran, and that's why they are reluctant. They drag their foot on the question of arguing from an informed standpoint why the Torah is better than the Quran. I guess they will forever avoid doing that, and I suggest that Muslims can keep asking all these rabbis, and if they keep saying no, put up a list of these rabbis who refuse to engage with Muslims when they ask them to explain why the Torah is better than the Quran. And if the real reason is that they fear to read the Quran because they have been instructed not to read the Quran, then I'm afraid these rabbis are not having the benefit of an informed opinion, and so their claim that the Torah is better than the Quran can be dismissed. Now, I talk about the lowest common denominator and highest common factor just to, make the point of the difference between somebody who is happy to satisfy minimum standards and another person who wants to achieve the highest possible standards. There will be a difference in behavior and the quality of their thinking and behavior. Obviously there will be a difference between somebody who is happy bumping along at the bottom of what is acceptable and somebody who aspires to do better. There will be a huge gap between the two, and over time the gap increases. So I hope I've made it reasonably clear about what idolaters lose when they reject the guidance of the best available guide to humanity. And if you don't agree that the Quran is the best available guide to humanity, you really do owe it to yourself to point to something better or produce something better, which I really don't think you're capable of doing. So I hope I will have put in the minds of many people who are on the Dawa scene some ideas to advance the argument, particularly against rabbis who are making a point of refusing to engage with Gentiles because they either fear to do it or, well, yes, it is fear, isn't it? They fear to engage with Gentiles. And talking about rabbis, there is a Rabbi Tovia Singer who is obviously concerned about the idolatry of Christianity. He does actually call Christians idolaters, but not in a sufficiently blunt way, because these Christians will pretend not to understand, dismiss idolatry because they never believe that God exists to punish them for their idolatry. And the trouble with Tovia Singer is that he does go on, and it's very complicated what he talks about. He does have great knowledge of the New Testament, but this doesn't sway the average anti-Semite who isn't even Christian. And even if he's Christian, he doesn't know his scripture well. And even if he's a theologian, they don't take these things seriously. So I'm afraid, rabbis who want to be light unto nations, they need to try a lot harder and be a lot blunter to these idolaters who worship an executed blasphemer. They need to try harder, and obviously not just leave it to little old me to be the only one pointing this out to these Christians. And these Muslims, they're not doing their job either, and they have even less excuse than the Jews because they're greater in number, and there is an explicit commandment in chapter 18, verse 4, that commands Muslims to admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son. And I'm afraid the Gazans will continue to suffer because these hypocritical, cowardly, and what's a third word for the cowardly, they refuse to take idolatry seriously, they refuse to use all the possible arguments they could have, and prefer posting atrocity porn about what's happened to the Gazans. People just scroll past them. You really have to use arguments that will make the Jews sit up and take notice. And if you dare not, or if you're too stupid to do that, or too ignorant, well, then you should at least try and digest these simple ideas and arguments that I have put before you and maybe use them. Thank you for your attention.